Hey everyone, Richard Elenius here. Welcome to another session of CSG Tech Talk. Today we are going to talk about the very exciting and fast evolving, transforming, pick your own verb of artificial intelligence. And we are going to look at it from a number of different angles. Artificial intelligence, of course, is providing fantastic growth opportunities for communication service providers. It's really now starting to transform the networks. It's also helping to transform the systems, starting to introduce specific agentic workforces and AI across the entire dimension of a CSP. And ultimately, of course, and the most important thing is to provide a lot of value to the end customer and really start to provide a much more impactful customer experience. And that's what we're going to deep dive into a little bit today. Initially, we're going to start with a walkthrough of this from Chris Silberg from IDC. He's a research leader there. And he's going to be looking at it from two angles. One, what is it that CSPs need to do to generate real value from AI, as opposed to perhaps dipping the toe in the water, starting to do some initiatives, starting to look at cost efficiency, so on and so forth. But how should CSPs really derive significant real value from these investments in AI? What are the most important areas to focus on, the top priorities, and how do you bring the whole CSP with you? And secondly, and kind of lining that up, where he is also going to talk a lot about the difference in impact from introducing agentic workforces and generative AI from more traditional methods like machine learning, so on and so forth. And then we're going to flip to a panel. I think it's going to be fascinating. You're going to have three different angles on this panel, and indirectly, of course, the research angle as well from Chris. But on the panel, we're going to have, from the customer perspective, we're going to have Eastlink. From a systems integrator perspective, we're going to have Rahul Kumar from IBM, who I've done multiple different panels with on this topic. And I know that he's going to have some amazing insights, both from IBM's perspective, but also from what he's seeing from a customer perspective to complement what we're going to hear from Eastlink. And then last but not least, we're going to have Joe Wilson, who is the CSG CIO, a good friend of mine, passionate on this topic, grown up in both the security and the AI space, and now going to add, from a CSG perspective, what do we see happening in the market? What are we doing? What's our role from a technology provider perspective, a solution provider perspective, into the ecosystem that we call communication service providers? So with that, sit back. Don't relax too much. I think this is going to be fascinating, but definitely sit back. Let me hand it over to Chris, who will take it away.
Thank you very much for the intro. Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and gentle people. It's wonderful to be with you here today to be going through the AI advantage, redefining the future of telecoms. I am Chris Silberg, Research Manager and Analyst Lead for IDC's Telecom Operations and Monetization Research. Today, I will be focusing on four things. First, decision points. What do you as telecom operators and the wider industry need to be deciding now for your AI strategy? What are some of the telecom use cases, and how actually are the latest tools around generative AI and agentic AI starting to change how we're responding to them? And finally, to wrap up, a quick discussion on how telcos can actually monetize AI and not just grow value internally, but externally as well. To start off with, though, we need to recognise the industry actually has a very long history of AI within telecoms. You may not say this is AI, but back in 1894, we had the Strauger mechanical telephone switch. This is part of the hardware revolution, which managed to automate the switching of telephone networks between customers there. Why is that important? Because actually for a lot of it today, a lot of the talk today, and also back 120, 30 years ago, AI was synonymous with automation. And that's generally what we're looking for with a lot of the use cases that we're employing today, even though that kind of all-encompassing generative AI chat interface, what we kind of most associate with AI today, looks nothing like the mechanical switch from 1894. But it also really underlines an important point. What is AI yesterday does not look like AI today, and what is AI today will not look like AI tomorrow, which is good and bad because it means as the capabilities of artificial intelligence in its various forms continue to grow, we are looking for it to solve clearer business objectives. We're looking for it to solve higher level problems. But that brings quite a lot of problems in terms of how do we work out the actual return on investment from these implementations. It's not as simple as acquiring the hardware, implementing it, and then the running costs, and then working out how much income we've gained as a kind of value benefit. In fact, we need to be thinking about business benefit in a much wider variety of aspects, some more tangible, some more intangible. In terms of the investment aspects, actually, the cost levers for AI have greatly expanded in terms of what are the types of infrastructure, what are the governance aspects, what are the risk aspects as well, in terms of this as not just a new value lever for myself and my company, but it is also a new risk vector. To really get a handle on this, operators, every enterprise has got to have a really clear vision on what the value they're going after is and how they will measure it. At IDC, we've developed this AI business value benefit framework to give a much more holistic idea of what are the types of values that enterprises can get from AI, and to start to get them to think in terms of what is the direct business value, perhaps in revenue generation, in cost reduction, but also what are some of the indirect values, which could be around time to market, it's around productivity and efficiency, around innovation and customer and employee experience. To tie this round into the telecoms industry, what we see is this: 74% of operators globally are investing in new tools to improve customer experience. Many of those, as you'll see throughout this presentation, are tied to investments in AI and GenAI. 62% are investing in AI and GenAI specifically to improve their operations. And that is a variety of use cases, many of them layering on different AI capabilities to increase the level of value. And that value isn't just in terms of monetary, but also many of these indirect, more intangible values as well. But the bottom line is this: whilst AI is seen as the most transformative technology facing telecoms today, it is also viewed as the hardest technology to implement by telcos globally. There are so many different factors at play, which means for your strategy, that clarity of vision, you also have to have a very clear idea on what you want to be. In these areas at IDC, we define it as consumer, configurator, and creator. If you're a consumer, are you taking third-party models, doing the fine-tuning work, and then deploying them into production? If you're a configurator, do you need more ownership in terms of what are the training data for some of these models? What is the infrastructure it runs on? What are the kind of security parameters around it? And if you're a creator, actually, these are the domains where you need to be in control and build the model yourself. It's really important that you don't try and be just one of these. You need to pick and choose as per your business requirements and your competitive requirements to decide where you really need that all overarching control of a creator or where a consumer strategy is more appropriate. Within the industry at large, we kind of see this on a very simple paradigm. You start at the customer service, the sales, marketing, monetization. These are functions which any enterprise has, and where actually the competitive pressure is focusing on speed of deployment, getting in there and actually getting these capabilities out to customers as fast as possible. So there's a greater reliance and focus on being consumers of AI models in these domains. Whereas actually in networking, around network optimization, product and innovation, in these areas, actually, we need much greater control over the models as a configurator or as a creator, because this really is not only our bread and butter, but it's what separates us from other industries. From a use case perspective, there are so many we could go through. I think the key elements I want to pick out of this slide, though, is many of these do not change just with the generations of technology. It could be quality assurance in billing management. It could be traffic forecasting or network anomaly detection or fraud detection. These use cases for AI in general have been with us for the last couple of decades already, and we already have investments in these. But when we start to think of the latest layers of innovation in AI, and we'll take out generative AI tools as a particular focus, we start to see increases in value, increases in capability. So if billing management, it started around actually scaling the quality assurance of billing tracks, bills being sent out to customers. Now it's turning into chatbot capabilities which can explain bills to customers, make sure that they actually have a greater level of understanding. If we start looking on the network side, it might be starting on predictive models. What are network anomaly? What is the traffic going to be? And then you layer on generative AI and it becomes more about articulating that. If all of the lights in the network operations center are blinking red because we've detected that there is a fault or an anomaly, we need to go that next level down to actually explain what that fault or anomaly, what the significance of it is, what is a prioritization, and perhaps what are the next best steps there. So overall, though, when it comes to GenAI, it has mainly been in those areas of business focused on human interaction and language. So customer experience and support, marketing and sales, and code generation. Those lower areas in terms of the OSS, in terms of network, still there. There's still a lot of value going, particularly in areas like knowledge management, still kind of about human-centric workflows. But other use cases are still further evolving and embedding. So we're now about 2 or 3 years in now to the focus on particularly AI and generative AI and what value that is bringing to the business. And we are starting to see results. At the top level, we are seeing this focus on reducing costs. And this isn't just the same for telecom, right across the enterprise landscape. There is a focus on using AI and generative AI to reduce costs. But there are also much more targeted benefits we're seeing. Personalizing CX, you saw it's the top reason. And what does that look like? For telecoms, that can be in the contact center, where call center agents are able to have tools which will summarize the call that they're on, so saving them time from those and enabling them to be freed up to serve more customers at a more rapid turnover rate. It's also in the analysis, of real-time analysis of customer sentiment, real-time analysis and support with next best offer, next best action suggestions for call center agents to enable them to guide and serve the customer as best as possible. In other areas, it's about new business insights. How can we actually take data which has been unstructured, perhaps it's been sitting in Word documents, in PDFs, and put that with some of our more quantitative data coming out of areas like the CRM from Salesforce or from customer interactions, and then layering on new insights of how are we performing, what could we improve, and where can we go next. There's also a whole realm around the knowledge management piece, not just in the contact center, but right across the business. So that could be in operations. What actually is the next best action when we have a network outage, perhaps, helping to guide engineers to that. Another really clear example we're seeing from several telecom operators is out in their field services department, when they're sending technicians out to look at a network outage in an area or to install a broadband router. It's providing them with a digital assistant to be able to do a better level of quality assurance, as we're doing, and also to provide those latest insights and questions. If a customer comes up to them and says, I see you're installing this router and I've heard this one's better, how does the technician respond to that? If they're not as familiar, perhaps they're newer onto the job, then these digital assistants can provide support there. What has been less top of mind have been areas like generating new revenues, and we'll discuss that at the end of the presentation, and optimizing infrastructure. If we were talking to Telenor and a few other telecom operators last year, and the key message we got with all of the focus on generative AI is this: look, yes, we have got a lot of use cases, and it does have value in optimizing our infrastructure estate, but actually there's a lot of the predictive, the AI, the machine learning algorithms, which can get us just as far or further within that infrastructure paradigm. So they have to be more of a priority for now. But within that, we are now hurtling towards that next evolution, and the focus is around agentic AI. To be really clear here, what really does define agentic AI from GenAI and what's gone before? It's about that capability for the AI agent to set goals, make decisions, and take actions. That autonomy given over to the agent as we give autonomy to our human agents, our human employees. A lot of the time, these agents, from a technical standpoint, they have to be backed up by a large language model because they need to understand and interact with ourselves and also access a wide range of different data sets and data models, both from structured data sets and unstructured, to be able to come to decisions and solve those higher level business problems, which is why we would need them in the first place. So with that, there is a heck a lot of interest in this space. This is from a survey we did in April. We've got an indicative telecom sample here, and we can say that 85% of large telcos say they have already begun experimenting with AI agents. Considering we've only been really had the concept out there in popular parlance for the last 6 to 9 months, that is a massive amount of interest and drive forward to considering this new AI paradigm. But where are we picking this up from? Really, it is an evolution of the kind of use case we're already seeing within generative AI deployments. I'll take that example of, let's say, a chatbot to sort out billing inquiries there, where on the GenAI side, we've kind of seen it go, a customer comes up and says, why is my bill higher this month? And the chatbot is able to access and give them a cogent response. Okay, you had some roaming charges there, which you didn't have a month before. You've just rolled out of contract, and that is why the charges have gone up. If we were taking that through into an agentic use case, then we start giving the AI agent more capabilities to resolve the problem, perhaps giving a credit on a customer's account because roaming charge was unprecedentedly large, or perhaps, let's say, when it comes to the rolling off of contract, it's about them saying, you're out of contract. We think, though, this is the best solution for you, for your family, that we can offer, and we will then credit you the difference between this month and last month as a goodwill gesture if you take this particular package. The agent could then go and do all the provisioning, set up everything so that it is a smooth customer journey from their now out of offer package onto the new tariff rate. But if we're allowing agentic AI to take those kind of decisions, then we also have certain worries. We've seen this throughout the story of AI within telecoms, that security is top of mind, the kind of trust in these systems to take those kind of decisions. It's amplified even more when we start getting into an agentic AI world where to make those kind of decisions, like moving a customer from one tariff to another, enabling it to take the internal process steps to make that transition happen, to give it powers to do things like give credits to customer bills. These do require robust data security lifetimes, because for all the powers we're giving to these AI agents, again, we need to trust that these cannot be compromised, that data, sensitive data, customer data cannot be exfiltrated from these agents. And we've seen similar concerns within GenAI, but it comes even more so when these agents have got true autonomy. The next area is around pricing transparency. AI is not free. And these systems do take real resources, real compute, real electricity, real time to go and implement these services, real life cycle as well in terms of making sure they're still able to perform. So the pricing transparency side is still something very much for the industry to work out. How are these systems supported? What are the long-term cost implications? And finally, user experience. How are we as humans going to work with them? What does the user experience go from perhaps a knowledge management tool in operations to one which can take more actions when faults occur? What does it look like from a standpoint perhaps on an engineering or a customer side, where I go, from perhaps managing a team of people to managing a team of AI agents. But to finish here on a bit of a backward step is currently it isn't necessarily clear what is truly agentic about some of these use cases. I gave the example on the billing side, and we also see examples in networking where, yes, we are allowing AI agents to take more actions, but we're still possibly not giving them full control of the workflow. So the path to agentic capabilities is always about that trust, about that level of control that we provide to the agent, and that we give to our own human agents in terms of what is the balance there. But I'm sure we will see that firm up in the next couple of years. So to round out, I did promise you routes to telecom revenue gain from AI. And at IDC, we kind of see 6 key areas. Many are familiar to telecom business models in practice today. Let's take the 2 first, AI reseller, AI app seller. We are an industry which is very at home with reselling. If it's on the consumer side, we resell Netflix, Disney+. If it is on the business side, it's Office 365. It could be cloud compute capacity from our partners. This will be a similar model with AI applications. On the other hand, we're also building a lot of AI capabilities internally, and some of those will go out to externally. Key examples here would be players like Vion or Telernus, who are going, we have built significant capabilities within our markets, and we can take them now into our enterprise accounts. When we're looking at other very familiar business models, we can talk about connectivity infrastructure for AI and AI inference infrastructure. So connectivity infrastructure for AI. Think about what Lumen has done in the United States, where they said, right, we have got the capacity, we have got the security, we have got the SLAs in place to mean we are the best infrastructure to assure and support levels of AI workloads across the United States for our hyperscale and large enterprise partners. This is a push in itself about differentiating based on the workload. On the other hand, we've got Verizon and many others who are going, right, we need to be the AI inference infrastructure partner. So thinking about all those assets where we were talking about AI at the edge, perhaps thinking, right, this is the latest iteration of that. Elsewhere, we're thinking about sovereign AI infrastructure, less on commercial bounds, more on national boundaries. This is where incumbent telcos, particularly in Europe, the Middle East, and elsewhere, are saying we are the one which is nationally owned, which can respond, have a deep connections to governments and national flag enterprises to be their sovereign one, where we control the supply chain, we control the infrastructure, and we can make sure that your applications, your AI workloads running across this infrastructure is secure from a national point of view. Finally, a longer term one, data and trust for AI. It's about saying that you, as a telecom operator, are providing trusted data to support AI applications in other domains. To finish, before we get to a fantastic panel, I want to leave you with this. With AI, progress is better than perfect. This came from Vikram Sena from Indosat Ooredoo Hutchinson out of Digital Transformation World this year. The pace of change as AI is such that to not get involved now, not get your hands dirty, you will not be able to develop that clarity of vision. You won't be able to develop the muscles that are required to be able to really see benefits and adapt the artificial intelligence to your use cases, to your requirements. So on that, that's all from me for now, and it's time to bring on the rest of my fantastic panelists.
Telecommunications is hard. Expensive tech stacks, shrinking margins, evolving customer demands. To thrive, you need a partner who delivers smarter monetization, next-level deal management, and real-time tailored experiences that drive loyalty. You need CSG's leading-edge SaaS technology solutions. Engage deeper, sell smarter, and maximize your profits. CSG, experience to value.
Ladies, gentlemen, and gentle people, it's now a time of conversation I've been very much looking forward to all week. So, bringing onto virtual stage with me to continue the discussion around the future of AI and how it's redefining telecoms, I'm very, very pleased to welcome Chris Hazel, VP of Information Technology at Eastlink. Chris, welcome.
Thank you.
Rahul Kumar, VP and Senior Partner, Global Industry Leader, Telco and Media at IBM. Rahul, wonderful to be speaking with you again.
Likewise,
And
Chris,
last,
thank you.
But by no means least, Joe Wilson, CEO of CSG and one of our co-hosts for today. Gentlemen, to kind of let you dive right into this topic, but also show your depth of expertise and how you're working with AI within your roles within the telecoms industry, I'd like you all to start by answering this question about what you see as the key factors that CSPs should be considering when they're implementing AI technologies. Chris, as our resident CSP on the panel, it'd be great to start with you.
Sure. Yeah, there's a tons of things in that question. I think some of the key things are really how you're measuring success, making sure you're super clear, not just that you know what you can measure, but you know how you're going to measure it. There's some things we ran into where we kind of had a rough idea how we were going to measure success, but then realized after we had gotten into it that we really couldn't measure success truly. We did not have the information or the data points that we really needed or the breadcrumbs that we could kind of tie together with that. So I think certainly taking a cross-channel view of the AI, whatever AI solutions you're rolling out. I think of just simple things for us like containment, where what are we considered a contained interaction, and if you only do a channel, that could be a bot, a customer question or a bot response, and you could think, oh, the customer went away, it's contained. No, it isn't. They're actually on the phone or they're in a queue waiting to talk to a live rep. They're only talking to the bot because they're in a queue waiting to talk to a live agent. So very much multi-channel. And the other thing I think for us is where we've been a little hard on ourselves regarding how we've kind of gone about this, but I think it's giving yourself a little grace to understand these things are not one and done solutions. They're very much learning opportunities. You're going to put some stuff out there. You're going to monitor it, measure it, optimize it. And the technology in the meantime will evolve and change and grow, and you will be doing redeployments of the same solution relatively, well, probably more quickly than you would like to, but through necessity. So yeah, there's a lot, Chris, there to think about regarding jumping into this. It's a lot of fun, and the opportunities are tremendous, but it's a program, not a project, that's for sure.
That's a great way to start. And funnily enough, Chris, it ties very much with what I was saying at the beginning of my presentation in terms of the different ways we need to think of value, how it's created, and how it is touching so many different areas, and the pace of change as well. Rahul, from IBM perspective, what are you seeing your CSPs needing to consider when it comes to implementing AI?
Absolutely. And I'm going to make a differentiation at some point in time between the traditional AI and generative AI. Right. But I think first and foremost, as CSPs are going down this path of embracing the new technology, not so new anymore, they need to figure out which of the value pools, and Chris said this, which of the value pools within the organization are best suited to get the outcomes. So yes, measurement has to be there, but you got to pick the right set of value pools that is actually going to give you measurable difference before and after, in order to really bask in the glory of success. I think that's point number one. Point number two is, what is the purpose for which you're using AI specifically? And this is where I make the differentiation between traditional AI and generative AI. From a generative AI standpoint, and to some extent, even the traditional AI, I think the purpose is just to automate the existing set of processes or workflows I think CSPs are missing a lot of value or leaving a lot of value on the table. The key needs to be, how are you rethinking the workflow? How are you rethinking the business that you're doing to use AI first thinking as opposed to AI plus thinking? So we at IBM, we usually call this from plus AI to AI plus, right? Which is the AI first level of thinking. And the last thing I'm going to say, there are many other factors, but the last thing also is the data. The data is the fuel to getting the outcomes from AI. So definitely the first few engagements or initiatives that you're picking up, there's got to be some consideration to what data sets are available and what is the quality of that data. It is absolutely important, but then not to suggest that you first clean up all the data within your organization and only then start AI. No, that's not what we mean. But it's take a look at where the value pools are, rethinking, and then looking at the quality of data, where the quality is okay, right? Not too bad. Let's give it a shot and work through the gaps.
Great insights there, Rahul, and kind of tying into what Chris was saying there in terms of actually having to rethink what is the clear route to success, but also what do we have to really measure that success, and part of that is on the data side as well. Joe, you're speaking last, so you kind of got to pick out what the pieces, what are the other bits we haven't said from Chris and Rahul there.
Love what Chris and Rahul shared, and completely agree. Look, the world is an ever more complex one. You know, it's hyper connected. The complexity on the IT side is extremely high. We've got on-prem data centers, we've got cloud data centers. We've got to make sense of everything that's happening and then apply an AI construct that makes sense. One of the most difficult things for me in my role, and one of the things that I think keeps everyone up at night, is investing in the right IT, right? And investing in the things that you think is going to drive the business forward. And so obtaining alignment around a common business goal across the entire business, I think, is step one. And then I love what we talked about in terms of AI pools of work. I think once you define those pools of work, then you can assign tools to those pools of work and then orchestrate the AI ecosystem. But one of the things that I think keeps us all up at night is death by 1,000 AI module cuts. Every tool that we have in the enterprise has its own AI module now. That's how they're selling more software into our businesses. And determining what's the ecosystem of choice inside your business is really hard to do in this construct. So it's an evolving landscape. It's moving faster as it's ever moved in history from an IT standpoint. And so I think there's a lot of challenges here, but starting with the business strategy and then applying the IT ecosystem along that business strategy, I think, is thing one for us.
I love that image of death by 1,000 AI platforms. I think, Chris, you were kind of nodding your head there as a big one.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some interesting questions in there, and I'm sure Joe's probably wrestled with this, and probably Rahul as well, is where to put the brain. Some of these things, should it be the AI orchestrating this, or should it be in your journey orchestration? So you're trying to figure out what the next best action is. And so we've spent a lot of time talking about, okay, what goes in the bot and what should the bot get from something else, just so we don't have too many brains trying to control a singular interaction with a customer. So that's been interesting to try to see if we can get more clarity internally for ourselves related to what do we put where and where does it belong, so that we have clarity on purpose. Because one of my things, Joe, that you said death by 1,000 cuts, that's where I start worrying about, does anyone really understand how this works anymore? because so many people have had their hands in it in so many different places that it's hard to unravel why the experience is the way the experience is. So.
Yeah, and then if I may, Chris, and Chris, you hit it right in terms of every platform is embedding AI into their capabilities. I think that's a source of benefit value as well as a source of confusion for CSPs. Value because for the data that platform is hosting, that's its source for, I think it absolutely makes sense for the AI on top of that to be utilizing that data and bringing out the outcomes. The value then, or the question then becomes, how do the different platforms talk to each other? And I think that's the place where CSPs need to have an open architecture where they are in control of which AI talks to what and how, as opposed to be beholden by any specific closed platform.
Yep.
I love that, Rahul. I also would just say you've got to define sources of truth, in this complex ecosystem. What is the primary source of truth for, as an example, HR data or customer data? Which one is the source of truth has to be identified, and there has to be a common framework for that. But I love your point, Rahul, about a common framework across all CSPs. I think that makes a ton of sense.
As we start getting into this talk about actually where we're getting the data, access to data, also, Joe, I love that image of the kind of potentially two warring sides of of a telco, where there's half of one side view of the customer and different half of a view of the customer, and they're not quite matching up. And you've got different AI models trying to do different things. Chris, to your point of where the brain is, we're starting to get now into actually what are some of the risks and the security challenges that are top of mind, and how we're dealing with them. It's something we're seeing increasingly within our IDC surveys, but every time we come back to AI, just the awareness or the worries on that risk landscape and the kind of vectors where risk can come in as we're starting to apply AI to higher level business problems just continue to grow and grow. So how are you thinking of this? Chris, possibly start with you with that statement on where's the brain going to be? How are you trying to solve that knotty problem?
Yeah, it's really just trying to sort out, I guess, what is any specific part of the architecture, what purpose does it serve, and who does it serve? How do we secure it? And making sure, like, the data custodianship is an important one, because we're trying to figure out, okay, well, what data points do we need to orchestrate around, and not using any more or exposing any more than we absolutely need to. Making sure from a customer, when customers come in, authenticate, making sure you've got the right authentication protocols and stuff in place, so we know who we're talking to, and having some checks and balances in there, because I know the whole thing is now just a new attack vector now for bad guys, and with the way they can inject and prompt engineer, and there's all kinds of interesting emerging ways where sort of the whole data privacy thing becomes a bit of an issue. So we've been trying to be deliberate with some of those things, but obviously we're learning as we go, and along with everybody else. But yeah, there's a lot to think about from an overall security perspective.
Joe, I'm just picking up from what Chris was saying there in terms of as a new attack vector, once we start putting chatbots out there, but also the idea of this is the new possibility for exfiltrating data out. Look, for you as one of the service providers there, helping support chatbots, thinking about the prompts, what's doing, how are you looking at managing that situation?
Well, I think it's ever more important for us to think about the birthright, from the birthright to tombstone of code that we're using inside our environment. We've got to do the right things from a security perspective. And it's along that entire ecosystem, understanding how the data is used, how we can protect it along that data journey is so vital. And we need to be thoughtful about not just those connections, but also about how the agents we create, at some point, there's going to be all these agents out in the environment. How do we make sure that those agents have proper access and are allowing, role-based access control environment on an ever more complex basis? And then you start to think about, there's data sovereignty today, and it causes huge amounts of challenges across IT environments. But think about an ecosystem where there's data sovereignty, but also AI sovereignty at some point, where certain LLMs might not be able to run in certain ecosystems or parts of the globe. And so, as we think about this, the world's going to get more complex, not less. So it's a challenging environment. We have to take measured steps from the very beginning and bake security in right away.
Mm-hmm. So that authentication, that data governance, which Chris was mentioning there right from the beginning. I mean, Rahul, looking over to you, I know IBM does so much work around AI, and as if I think of IBM Watson, that long heritage of thinking of these systems here and bringing that into chatbots, but also further and further across the enterprise. You've got your own small language models, your own capabilities there. How are you looking at this aspect, and what are kind of some of the areas you're able to take that out into your customers and the wider ecosystem?
Right. And thanks for taking that up that way, Chris, because really it's a privilege being at IBM because we have the technology, we do the consulting work, working with our clients, we have the security tooling as well. So it's kind of an all-round approach to seeing what are the potential issues, what are the potential pitfalls around security. So let me come at it from a couple of different angles. Number one is with AI, I think the one big risk category is uncertainty of outcome, uncertainty of data. And so that goes back to a few things, which is the LLM that you're using, or the foundation model essentially that you're using. Do you know what data has gone in to create that foundation model? Is that lineage of data, is the type of data that is powering that foundation model, if that's available or known to you, that takes away the uncertainty. And better still, if it's been certified as no risk to the user. And so you mentioned our Granite models, the small language models. One of the approaches that our organization took was to open source these models and give an Apache 2 license and indemnify our clients for the use of it. So, and the only reason we can do that is we are sure about what data has gone into training of that model. So we're very clear in terms of what the model will do and not do. So that's point number one. Point number two, as you start using these foundation models, you're going to enrich them with your enterprise data, because look, at the end of the day, for CSPs, the power of the outcomes resides in your enterprise data. As you train the models, tune the models using your enterprise data, the other risk factor that emerges is how would the models perform on an ongoing basis? So they may be giving you the right answer today, but is that answer the correct answer tomorrow, day after? So this whole notion of governance comes in. And when I say governance, it's not just people just trying to do the right things. It's software and tooling that's very systematically looking at the output of the model against think of these as guardrails, against guardrails, and whether the responses are between those guardrails, between the risk tolerance limits. And the moment they go outside, the sooner you catch them and sooner you can recalibrate either the foundation model or the data sources, better it would be. And then, Joe, you mentioned it in terms of the different points at which security risks can come in. Having a zero trust approach, right from access to the use of data to how it's operating and measuring outcome, I think it's all the security posture needs to be all inclusive.
A key uncertainty I want to pick out of that, Rahul, is around the cost of these elements. It's something which has really stuck with me. There was a presentation from some of your colleagues to the analyst community last year, where one of their telecoms clients had implemented a chatbot which was supported by a large language model, and the cost of that ran over $10 million. And then the next year they swapped in Granite on the small language model side, and it was down into a single million digits in terms of that. And I guess that's part of the fine-tuning, the life cycle approach. Chris, from your aspect, when you're thinking about your internal organization, how are you looking at setting up structures to think about this on a kind of more regular life cycle basis? You mentioned the kind of 6 months, maybe even down to 3 months or less, and having to constantly review for models once they're in production. Yeah,
we've restructured around it a little bit too. We have a specific team now that's all they do, and all they will be doing. So we're trying to keep the accountability for the solutions and the optimization in one spot. We understand the metrics. We understand what the ROI has been to the business. So trying to really bring focus to it. I think when we originally went into it, it was sort of lean on a vendor to get a solution out the door. And then we had our CX team kind of looking at the interactions and seeing whether we were winning or losing, and there were good ones or bad ones, and it wasn't particularly efficient. We had a lot of people sort of working on optimizing a very modest first step, a few years ago. So we know now that this is a full-time gig. This is focus. We have to keep the breadcrumbs. We have to keep the data trail visible. We need to run this through our ML models to try to make sure we're actually seeing the behavior, the customer behavior we want to see. I won't do any brand shaming, but I was on a chat bot on a specific site and figured out pretty quick, probably within 3 or 4 utterances, that the bot couldn't help me. So I started doing the live chat by chat, live agent discussion to try to break out into a live person. Couldn't get to a live person, but it gave me a number. Hey, call this 1-800 number. That'll get you to a live agent. I called the number, got in queue, and I got into the same bot, voice version of the exact same bot. So I had to jailbreak my way out of that before I finally got to whatever. So the experiences are complicated, and like I say, if you don't look at them through a multi-channel angle, and you do have to figure out what are you prioritizing? Are you prioritizing cost savings? Because the way you're going to build that structure, that will be different if you're prioritizing CX or you're prioritizing EX. So there has to be some sort of clarity of value system there, that you're going into it going, I'm willing to push this to a live agent easier than I know that's going to get me less containment, but it's going to ensure we don't frustrate our customers unnecessarily. So there's a big balance there for sure.
I think that's a really important note in terms of the kind of hierarchy of value outputs, the value pools you mentioned. In terms of, look, yes, overall, I probably do want to get the cost savings out of this. It costs money to run, it costs money to deploy, but maybe that customer experience is worth sacrificing some of those cost savings, because actually it means my top line, my revenue will be kind of more robust, more defensible if that customer experience is maintained throughout. Joe, I want to pull you into the discussion in terms of like the life cycle of the models and managing that from your perspective as CSG.
Yeah, I think there's an art to orchestrating the AI environment, right? I mean, Chris was talking about a portion in terms of costs. So understanding your license models is really, really important. Understanding how do you validate that the AI models are actually doing what you want them to do? How do you validate that the data is set up in a proper fashion for you to actually execute AI against it? All those things are really important. And when you think about what we've done, I guess, on the CSG side, in some cases, we're replicating a similar model that we used for our building out our public cloud workloads. So we have communities of practice. We have experts that are meeting together. We have a governance committee that's overseeing the investments that we're making and making sure we're doing the right thing. And then what we've got is we actually do have a practice that is a FinOps public cloud practice. So as we're seeing real-time data come in for costs, our FinOps practice is able to go into our public cloud environment and said, hey, you might be able to configure these things in such a manner that it makes it more cost effective for our customers as well as us. And I think a similar model or approach has to be taken in the AI landscape, because it's got to be the right workload for the right set of problems you're trying to solve. And I do love what Chris shared there, because those value pools, it is distinctly different. You may say, I want my customer experience to be extremely high, and I'm willing to pay for that, for the speed. But there's going to be a cost associated with those kinds of trade-offs. So I think that's important. Again, orchestrating and understanding what's the core of the business, what are the value pools, and making sure that everyone knows their role to orchestrate it. It's a difficult thing, but it's going to be ever more important going forward.
And the other important note there, Joe, was actually what you were saying about taking that experience in what we have had already done in the cloud and making sure we're also transplanting some of those experiences into what we're doing with AI. Certainly at IDC, we do see these very tightly interconnected, wherever most of these models hosted, wherever many of them run, or certainly where they all trained, it's in the cloud, and actually working out some of the financial aspects, also just some of the cloud delivery models and optimization and upgrade paths in terms of that frequency of different components. If we're thinking of a public cloud, maybe it's okay, they've got some of the latest NVIDIA chips in. Do you want to make that cost decision to start running off them? All of those kind of lifecycle management is brought into now these on the application side as well with AI. So I'm conscious that we could probably run on for at least another hour, but we don't quite have that. But we've also been talking a lot about the hard work that's going on to really drive impact with AI and to consider and what, it's probably about time that we actually start saying what's some of the payoff of this? Why are we on the telecoms industry putting so much effort? And again, Chris, I'd like to turn to you to start us off in terms of sharing what have been some of the successes, the impacts, and to be honest, maybe one or two failures where you said, look, it was a good learning experience. We know we're not going to do that now.
Yeah, so we're in the middle now of sort of upgrading or updating technology already. So we're about 3 years in, and we're already doing a bit of a switcheroo. Just because we don't think where we started is going to get us, really longer term where we want to be. So we're already refactoring, and I wouldn't surprise me at all if in another couple of years we're refactoring again. We know, we've had, I think the learnings we've had from our failures have been tremendous. And I think we have far more clarity of where we're going now than we ever had when we were taking initial steps. So I think, like with many things, failure, if you're paying attention, will treat you or teach you far more than a success. And so it's been good from that standpoint. None of us like to fail, but I think there's a ton to take away from some of that. I would definitely make sure we're trying to think ahead, think longer term. We know what we think the wins are. We have better clarity on that related to whether that's cost avoidance or whether that is driving certain high priority KPIs in the business, like handle time, the overall call volume. There's a bit of a challenge. We're probably no different than a lot of other CSPs where when you start talking about ROIs and you start talking about budgets, and then there's, budgets get adjusted based on expectations and whatever. So we're trying to learn that dance as well around, there's a plan, but there's also we have to be fluid. We have to be willing to, be agile and adjust that plan and reprioritize as we need to. The other thing for us coming up, I think, is really going to be starting to leverage it more as a coach for frontline reps. So actually telco is a very complicated business, as everyone on the phone here, I'm sure, or on the call is aware. And really, how can we make the job easier for front lines, which has a very difficult and complicated job. So over the next few months, we're hoping to be really evolving that a lot more so that we do a lot more, either whether it's automation or whether it's just, hey, here's the next best action for that customer. And we kind of talk them through whether it's instructions or whether it's call wrap up or whether that's here's how to respond to that customer inquiry.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Chris. Joe, kind of thinking of your wider customer base here, what are some of the outputs, the measurable achievements that they've been seeing?
Yeah, I think that measurement is key. And Chris has mentioned this, Rahul's mentioned this as well, for those investments. And some of them are a little bit soft, right? So identifying some key KPIs along the journey is so important. That way you can measure that investment, measure that success. I think just in general, huge customer experience opportunities here across the board, whether it's personalized service or personalized look and feel to the offerings that are created. I think that's so important because you want your sentiment with those customers to grow over time and to like your products more and more. And so I think there's a huge opportunity there. Measuring the impacts of that, whether it's through churn types of KPIs or of various items there for these companies, I think is really important. I also think about, when we think about what's happening across the industry, fraud is always a concern, and anything we can do in terms of fraud and cybersecurity activity. I mean, we've seen that continue to grow, especially when you start talking about AI and the investments that the bad folks are making too. So anything that can be done on that front. But again, I just look at it, let's start from the business goal, identify what types of AI tools you can bring to bear, and then getting alignment on who's orchestrating those major investments across the industry, across your CSP, I think is key.
Excellent. Rahul, what have been some of the benefits and measurable impacts you've been seeing?
Let me start at the highest level. For CSPs, we look at the value pools as the customer value pool, the network value pool, and the enterprise functions value pool. Right? So forward-looking, your core competence around network, and then everything that you do internally to support this. That's at the value pool level. At the KPI or outcome level, I usually look at it as, is it revenue generating? Whether it's cost optimizing, whether it's avoidance or cost reduction. There is the experience element around it for sure. And then the productivity. This productivity may not result in actual cost reduction, but it does allow you at least more capacity to do more. Right? So in terms of what the engagements we're doing with our clients and where the clients are driving value, when you look at revenue generation, we worked with this CSP to poll external market data, voice of customer data, to come up with new product ideas. CSPs, as you know, Chris, they're struggling with the revenue side of the house. And part of the answer or solution is to come up with the ideas, product ideas that the customers need or want or have not articulated, but inherently in their feedback or comments or reviews, it can come out through the science of digital product engineering. So we've helped shorten the start to idea to concept cycle from 9 months down to 10 weeks. And so you can think about if out of the 30, 40 ideas that you get, even if 2 or 3 were to make it, the revenue enhancement and the time to market advantage is definitely going to increase that. On the cost side, let me take an example on the network side. On network operations, we're working with clients to position something that we call as a NOC agent assist or the technician assist. Or in the future, the architecture is going to be network agent platform.
Yeah.
And the whole idea there is, how do you get to get all of the sources, different sources of data that a network engineer needs in order to resolve things or debug or try and figure out what is happening in the network. How do we make that easier for the network engineer to straddle through the variety of data sources in order to get to the root cause resolution and then automate that the resolution? It cannot be done all at once, and you can't start with the perfect architecture for the future. But you start off with an architecture that's componentized, that can work towards building kind of a platform. And then on the enterprise productivity side, one of the classic examples is around call centers, call center operations. I'll say this, and Chris, at Eastlink, I'm sure you're looking at this as well. The call transcript analysis can come up with such loads of treasure in terms of not just revenue generating ideas, but also processes which are not working and costs that are either the customers are paying or the organizations are paying that can be completely avoided. So that analysis and the intent to look at what the customer, voice of customer is suggesting, I think that's pretty key. So those are some of the examples. There are obviously lots more, as you said, Chris. We can go on for hours around that, but those are the three big pools and buckets.
Fantastic. Gentlemen, thank you all very much. Unfortunately, that is all we do have time for on this panel, but I'm very much looking forward to the next discussion. If I was to wrap up and probably bring out just a couple of quick key messages, though, for those in the audience. Number one is that AI today does not look like AI tomorrow. And more than ever, that means you do have to get hands-on in engaging with it now, so that you can start progressing on your path to finding the maximum value. The other element of that is when you're trying to get to that value, the clarity of vision that you can bring into it. How are you going to measure it? How are you going to secure it? Who is needed to bring that solution together in terms of your partners, in terms of your internal stakeholders as well, is critically important. So I think, gentlemen, that's all from us. Thank you very much, all of you out there in the audience, for listening, and we look forward to seeing you again at another time.
Thank you, Chris.
A big thank you to our panel. A big thank you also to Chris. I hope you found that as exciting as I promised it would be. And I think also from my perspective, what we've now really dived into a little bit further is that shift from testing AI, starting a few initiatives, and we're now much more moving into operationalize AI across the entire spectrum of the communication service provider, the systems integrators. What are they doing? And what are we from a technology and a solution perspective doing to really, at the end of the day, help maximize one thing, which is the end customer experience? Because if we do that well as an industry together, then this industry will be growing faster again. And with that, I just wanted to say a big thank you to all of you for listening in, participating in this. And until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, have fun, stay curious, and we'll come back to you with another Tech Talk session from CSG in the very near future.